Does bad hero design lead to a bad hero and a less fun experience? And does a good hero design lead to a better hero and a more fun experience? Now, the problem with having this discussion is it's all subjective, right? What I consider a good hero, you might consider a bad hero, and vice versa. And what I consider bad, you may not. But generally speaking, in the community, there have been certain heroes over the course of this game's life cycle that have been considered bad, right? Or not as good. And some of them, actually most of them, have had pretty interesting redemption arcs with over time they have changed to being better heroes. I think one of the biggest ones and one of the first ones that this kind of really happened to was Thor. When Thor came out, there was a lot of hype around him. And there's a lot of interesting things he could do with being engaged to a minion. He could draw 2 cards, right? He could do a decent amount of damage with how Milior works, right? There was a lot of interesting things you could do with Thor. And later on, cards from Penny Parker's set, like Limitless Stamina and Unshakable, really helped out Thor and made him a better hero, right? Made him a better hero. The arguments of that, oh, he's not great at thwarting or he's only a minion slayer, which we hear by another hero, which we'll talk about later. But those arguments weren't really brought up as much because people accepted that Thor can be a good hero. It just, you had to work a little bit differently. It was a little bit harder to get him going. It was maybe a more niche hero, but he was still a good hero. And very rarely do you hear him in the conversation of worst hero anymore, though he was in that conversation a decent amount in the past. The same can kind of be said for She-Hulk. She-Hulk was just kind of forgotten about in the core set, and it wasn't really brought up that much except to say, oh yeah, She-Hulk is not very good. And I feel like it's in the past, I don't know, maybe a year, that She-Hulk has now been now considered good. Again, Limitless Stamina, Unshakable, all help her out, sure. But I feel like not a lot of people got the gist of how She-Hulk was supposed to work, right? She's supposed to spend more time in her alter ego side than her hero side. Her alter ego side is really powerful. Her natural ability to stop one threat being placed on the scheme, which is great. Legal practice, which you can choose and discard up to 5 cards from your hand to remove 1 threat from a scheme for each card discarded this way, right? Is a good way to cycle through your deck. Superhuman Law Division wasn't a bad card at all, right? All these cards were good on the alter ego side, but so many people are playing Marvel Champions just straight up on the hero side that they weren't flipping down that often. So while She-Hulk was kind of forgotten about, over time now, I feel like people have really grown to appreciate her as a hero, and they think she's a lot more interesting and nuanced as a hero. But you'll never see her really mentioned as some of the worst heroes anymore. There was a while when people did remember, it was just to really remember that she was the worst hero. That argument's not really made that much anymore. Hawkeye could be kind of said the same thing. I don't know if anyone ever said he was really one of the worst heroes, but there was a lot of disappointment around Hawkeye. Hawkeye can be tough to work with. I still have issues with Hawkeye, and because of that, I don't play him as much as I do, so thus he goes down on my list a lot. But with how Hawkeye's bow works and Hawkeye's quiver, and the fact that he only has 9 hit points, right? It could be a little rough getting him going. But once you do, there's a lot of people who like him like a ton. Like people in our Discord really love him. People in this YouTube community really love him as a hero. And it's kind of interesting to see how Hawkeye has changed over time to kind of go from this hero that people were really disappointed about to, nah, he's a little more nuanced of a hero. You have to do certain things to get him to work, but when he does work, it's really good and really fun. To the point that I've seen people make the argument that you don't even need Hawkeye's bow, that you can make him work pretty well without it, which has been an interesting conversation. It's been like happening more and more like the past few months. So now, the first hero that really come out where people were like, oh yeah, this isn't good, is Hulk. And this argument has kind of stayed for the longest time that Hulk is the quote unquote worst hero. Now, there's a lot of bad things about Hulk, and I don't know if it's just a legend or if it's rumor or if it's actually been confirmed, but apparently the saying or the story with Hulk goes that he was super strong. They realized he was too strong, so they pulled a bunch of stuff from him that was moved eventually to Drax, and that's why Hulk doesn't feel like complete or feels off, right? I don't know how true that is, but that's kind of just been the thing that's been said a lot. You can let me know in the comments if that's right or not. But for example, cards like Crushing Blow, you can only spend the fist resource to pay for this card. Stuff like this wasn't seen a ton in Heroes when Hulk came out. Now it's only a 1 cost card, so that's not so bad. But you have things like Suborbital Leap, where it's a 3 cost event to remove 3 threat from a scheme, but 5 if you paid only fist resources, right? Where's Hulk Smash? Hulk Smash, which I can't find. Oh my gosh, it's the big card. Hulk Smash, if you paid using only fist resources, it gains overkill, right? There were cards that, Unstoppable Force, if you paid only fist resources, you get to draw a card. There were cards like this that made it hard to use Hulk because our card pools also weren't super large, right? We didn't have a ton of options to use the fist/strength resource with. So it was just harder to build around Hulk. Now it's gotten easier because the card pool has gotten bigger. And again, cards like Limitless Stamina, cards like Unshakable, really help out Hulk for sure. But he's still not considered great, right? He's probably the first time we saw poor design. And I would say he's the only time really that we've seen poor design and people have tried to figure out and not been able to figure out Hulk, right? I spent an entire year trying to make Hulk work. I just couldn't. People have done Justice Hulks and that have worked pretty well and interesting, which I think which can be cool. But here's Drax. I was talking about. Apparently, some of this stuff was pulled for Bruce, but yeah, some people have done Justice Hulks, which work really well. Aggression Hulk Rush works pretty well. I've done basic Hulk decks that work, somewhat well. He's still a rough hero to make work overall. Now, there's two heroes that are either forgotten about or just kind of thrown on the bottom of the list. And the first one is Groot. And I think it's kind of a shame because I actually think Groot is a really strong hero. I just feel like people have kind of forgotten about him. And because people forget about him, they assume he's not good, and he kind of gets placed lower on tier lists than I think he should be. Now, the reason, I think, and I'm speculating on this, is because when the Guardians box came out, it wasn't a very good box. The heroes were a little tougher to work with, and now as more Guardian heroes came out, these Rocket and Groot have both gotten better and stronger. Now, Rocket was always kind of good out of the box, but I think Rocket's gotten even better. Neither of them could really go through and defeat Ronan that easily. It was pretty hard to, so the whole box was kind of like, scuffed to a point. And the other thing is, I think a lot of people are playing Groot in protection, right? This is how they have you playing Groot, right? It comes in protection. He has 3 defense with the ability to defend up to 5, 6 with Vine Shield, right? So he has an insane amount of growth, and then people saw that you had growth counters, right? And that you can remove them to prevent 1 damage. And I think a lot of people are using those growth counters as a way to keep Groot alive, when in fact you actually don't want to take any damage with Groot. And this is one of, I think, the harder things to know about Groot, and one of the misconceptions for Groot is that you just don't want to actually lose any of your growth counters. I've done live streams over on Twitch where I've played I Am Groot, where it's a 3-cost event, and I've removed 10 threat off of a scheme with his counters, which is a great ability, right? It's great to be able to do that. I Am Groot, where I have done this as well. I've done 2 costs to do 10 attack, which is by far, I think, one of the best, if not the best, cost to damage ratio cards out there. The problem is you have to protect your growth counters, and a lot of people don't do that. Again, they don't think to keep flipping Groot down to his alter ego side. They don't play Justice Groot as much. I think that's the best way to play him. And because people are playing in protection and using growth counters to get removed, these cards never seemed as strong as they should be. So when, what is that? About half of your, or I guess a quarter or a third of your event cards from your hero aspect seem not that good, people play that hero less and less and less. I have seen some little bit of a comeback with Groot, with people playing him more and more and more, but it's not a ton. He's still kind of forgotten about, and thus is kind of pushed down the list because most people consider him not that well designed because he's not that strong or whatever. I actually think he's a pretty interesting design hero. I actually really enjoy it. All of this talk is to get to Valkyrie, who is generally considered the worst hero. Now, if you're in our Discord, and by the way, you should be, if you're not, the link's down below, I commonly refer to Valkyrie as the GOAT, right? Or the greatest of all time. Now, I do this mostly tongue-in-cheek because I don't think there is a truly bad hero out there. I think heroes are meant for specific purposes, and some are easier to get them for those purposes, some are harder. And for other purposes, some are slightly hard and some are really hard. I think Valkyrie is a really hard hero to work, but I still think Valkyrie can be a really good hero overall. And I've brought this up constantly to people, and they just call me crazy. They're like, no, Valkyrie isn't good. There's no good way to do her. Or they say the only thing she's good at is minion slaying because she's not great at thwarting. It's too difficult to thwart with her. her death glow thing isn't that great, whatever. I've heard all the arguments. And the funny thing is, a lot of these arguments were the same arguments that were made about Thor not that long ago. Now, Thor has more help with him having 14 health, so that the cards from Penny Parker actually help out Thor a decent amount. But Valkyrie did come with also cards that helped Thor out as well, with Godlike Stamina, which is another card that really helps both of them out. But the thing is, these are all arguments, like all these arguments that I've heard about Valkyrie are the same arguments I used to hear about Thor that are no longer brought up. And the thing is, I think a big part of why people don't like Valkyrie is because the learning curve to get her to be decent is very high. Like it's hard to do. She is a hard hero to work, and it's just easier to just be like, okay, I'll just deal with minion heavy decks and that's it, because that's the easiest way to play her. I get it. I do. I get the argument. But the thing is, I don't think she's a bad hero by any means. Deathglow, sure, is a little clunky, and if it worked easier, it'd be smoother. Yeah, I get it. Annabelle Riggs is pretty useless as a signature ally. I get it. The fact that you could do 4 attack is pretty awesome, right? With Dragon Fang put on with Deathglow. I've heard a lot of arguments that, there we go. Flight of the Valkyrie is not that great because, you know, you have to defeat a minion and that's how you remove threat. And I get that argument too, but we've seen that with other heroes too, right? This is how Spider-Man works as well. But yeah, we don't make that same argument with Spider-Man. And I think a part of it is because people spent a lot of time with Spider-Man, because we didn't have many heroes back in the day. They spent a lot of time with Spider-Man to figure out how to make him work. And the thing is, by the time Valkyrie came out, there were already so many heroes out there that what's the point? Why bother? And this leads it back to our original point of, does bad hero design lead to a bad hero and basically not fun experience or not? And the thing is, it depends on what kind of player you are. I enjoy more difficult heroes. For those that don't know, I can't stand Doctor Strange hero. I do not like him. I do not like really anything about him because I don't find him that interesting or fun. And when I talk about that, I don't like Strange, they always go, oh, it's because he's too OP, he makes the game too easy. And the truth is, no, that's not the case. I like Spider-Ham a lot, and I still think Spider-Ham is the strongest hero in the game. But regardless, he's one of the strongest heroes in the game. I think that's safe to say. And I still enjoy Spider-Ham. I think Scarlet Witch is one of the strongest heroes in the game. And I still really enjoy Scarlet Witch. The thing is with Doctor Strange, if I just handed a random player that kind of knew how to play Marvel Champions a Doctor Strange deck, it doesn't matter what aspect, and I said, here, play this deck, they would figure out how to play Strange pretty quickly. Run through the Invocation deck. Yes, there's a little bit of nuance in how you play Strange with Wong, and you probably want Cosmo in your deck and whatever, but generally speaking, that's what you do with Strange. And there's a good argument made is this a good hero design or not? It's really easy. It's really quick to grasp. But does that make it a good design? Makes it for a strong hero, that's for sure, because he's very easy to get. But does it make it more fun? For me, no. It makes it less interesting. It makes the game less interesting. Heroes like Valkyrie make the game more interesting to me. And I know a lot of people would argue it the other way, that heroes like Valkyrie make the game worse, that you basically just have a dead hero where you either don't get or you did get and you wasted money on. But I enjoy this challenge the same way I think the majority of the community enjoys the challenge of Hulk. I think it just takes us a while to get there, right? It's a lot of work and it's a lot of effort. And that's why these heroes, specifically Thor, She-Hulk, and Hawkeye, have slowly been able to make redemptions over the years, or really the past year or two, as being not the worst, right? Not being terrible, because we didn't have a ton of options for different heroes and we really wanted to get these heroes to work. And for me personally, that's why I'm on a quest to make sure that Groot and Valkyrie are decent heroes, right? I think I've quote unquote figured out Groot the best way I can with my Groot Justice deck. I don't know if I ever wrote the deck out, so I have to do that still. But I've played it over on stream. I think I played it on with other people, and it works pretty well. It's pretty strong and works good, I think. Valkyrie is still one hero that I'm still working on, that I'm still figuring out. And to me, that's what makes this game interesting and fun. What I will say is, for people that are wondering what kind of deck should they play with Valkyrie, because this is a common question I get all the time, is, well, what do you recommend? This deck is about a year old, but Brian V, who's really great at building decks, this is his Valkyrie deck. And it's a leadership deck, which I don't even like leadership that much, but this deck works really well and it's a lot of fun to play. And he even has a video over here that you can click on and you can watch the whole thing and whatever, which shows his like playthrough of it. But I think that's worth checking out. and watching. So this way you can get a rough idea of what Valkyrie can do, right? Is Valkyrie ever going to be an S or A tier hero? Obviously not, but she could still be good and interesting. I think it just takes time. And to me, quote unquote, bad heroes or bad hero design makes for a better experience for me personally. I think it makes for a more fun, interesting experience. And some heroes that are super straightforward, I don't think it's as interesting or as exciting. And that's where I want to ask you all, where do you fall on this? Do you enjoy the difficult challenges that come with heroes, or is it just too frustrating? Because I get that argument too, that why is it worth putting in all this time for Valkyrie to basically end up with a mediocre hero at the end, right? Same could be said for Hulk. Why spend all this time when you're just going to end up with a mediocre hero? I get it. I get the argument for it. I truly do. And that's why I want to ask you all down in the comments, let me know. Do you enjoy badly designed heroes? And do you believe that these are badly designed? With the exception of maybe Hulk, because I think there's a really easy argument made for Hulk. But are they badly designed, or are they just very, very specific heroes, right? They can only be done for certain things. Or do you enjoy better designed heroes, right? Heroes that are designed really well. Let me know that in the comments. And while you're down there, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit subscribe. All that stuff really helps. And yeah, I really appreciate you watching this video.